Welcome, you're watching Vox News, your daily news updates with Rita Kamkumo. Our headlines today: after 3 days of protests calling for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's resignation, civil unrest continues in Bamako despite international appeal for calm. Ivory Coast former Vice President Duncan speaks out after the announcement of his resignation on Monday. A library in Ghana is showcasing the works of all African and African diaspora writers to honor Afro-descendants' literary heritage. Our top story today: after 3 days of deadly anti-government protests, civil unrest continued in Mali's capital Bamako on Monday, with opposition demonstrators setting up barricades in the neighborhood of Badalabougou near the mosque of influential imam and protest leader Mahmoud Dicko.
We are still here in Badalabougou at the Imam's Mosque. The police are still shooting at people. We are ready to die for that because when you look at my left eye, I got tear gas in my face yesterday and I was almost unconscious. But today I'm still on the ground and I'm here to fight for my rights.
On Sunday, Imam Dicko urged protesters to continue to fight with calm and restraint after at least 4 people were killed in clashes between civilians and security forces as part of the demonstrations that took place on Friday and Saturday, calling for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's resignation. President Keita is facing a mounting wave of protests whose causes include election fraud accusations, a perceived lack of government response to jihadist and inter-ethnic violence, and discontent over the handling of the economic crisis. The weekend of unrest continued through Monday, despite the president's attempts at finding a compromise with the opposition coalition.
We want profound change. Our fight is not just about the dissolution of the assembly, but our fight is really for President Keita's departure once and for all, and for a new Mali. We are determined to go all the way. If he wants to use tear gas, I am ready to take my share of bullets to join my creator. But Mali has to be what we want it to be.
As long as the police keep attacking, people here are bound to stay and defend themselves. And that's just it. The barricades and the young people are there expressing their indignation. But unfortunately, it's the authorities themselves who are launching tear gas. And unfortunately, we find ourselves in the middle of this power struggle between the forces of law and order and the demonstrators.
The international community voiced its concerns on Sunday evening over Mali's ongoing political crisis, while condemning any form of violence as a means of crisis resolution. Meanwhile, on Monday, the Malian authorities released protest leader Kaoujin in an attempt to ease civil unrest. The protest leader describes his arrest as an assassination attempt.
I wasn't arrested, I was kidnapped. You see, they came here to my house at 11 p.m, banged on the door and disguised themselves as part of the family. They came in, they dragged me out of my living room almost naked and took me away. So for 2 days I slept in an unsanitary washroom with no food, no contact, in total isolation. So for me it was an assassination attempt. Everyone has just seen that Ibrahim Boubacar Keita is not consistent and that Ibeka is not in the Republic. So the people are really determined for Ibeka to leave. But we want it to be peaceful and democratic. You think that the people just went out so that there would be death and that we would be arrested and then released? But if it is to intimidate us, they've got it all wrong.
Representatives of the United Nations have called for dialogue between the opposition coalition and the Malian government to try and ease public anger.
We are still at the beginning, and we simply hope that by going back and forth, we will be able to find a way out of the crisis.
On Saturday, Mali's new Prime Minister Boubou Cissé vowed to rapidly form a government that he said will be open to facing the challenges of the day. Meanwhile, President Keita's son, Karim Keita, another target of protesters' anger, announced on Monday evening his resignation as Parliamentary Defense Committee chair. The president's son had been making headlines over suspicions that he leads a lavish lifestyle using public money. Civil unrest continued on Monday in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Thousands of protesters gathered in the capital Kinshasa to oppose plans to name a controversial new chief of the country's election board. Monday's rally was called by the main alliance of opposition parties, Lamuka, after the National Assembly, which is dominated by supporters of former President Joseph Kabila, decided to appoint Ronsard Malonda as chairman of the Electoral Commission, a man accused by the opposition of helping Kabila to rig past elections.
I hope that the authorities who are organizing this type of operation will have understood the message of the people. I hope they do.
Security forces wielded tear gas to disperse the protesters. Police also dispersed other demonstrations in the eastern city of Bukavu and the central city of Kananga.
Of course, we can deplore cases of brutality, of hindrance, in certain cities, certain territories, certain provinces. But on the whole, the people have been present, and I congratulate them on that.
Monday's protest came 4 days after 5 people lost their lives in banned demonstrations organized by President Félix Tshisekedi's Union for Democracy and Progress over the choice of the disputed new election chief. The decision to appoint Malonda now rests with President Tshisekedi, who must validate this choice approved by the National Assembly. Ivory Coast Vice-President Daniel Duncan is no longer in office. The news of his resignation came on Monday via a statement read by Presidential Chief of Staff Patrick Achi.
The Vice President of the Republic, Mr. Daniel Duncan, submitted to the President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Alassane Ouattara, his resignation from the post of Vice President of the Republic for personal reasons, by a letter dated February 27, 2020. After several meetings, the last of which took place on Tuesday, July 7, 2020, the President of the Republic took note of his resignation and proceeded on Wednesday, July 8, 2020, to sign a decree putting an end to the functions of Mr. Daniel Duncan as Vice President of the Republic.
Mettant fin aux fonctions de M. Daniel Duncan en qualité de vice-président de la République.
Shortly after the announcement, the former vice president issued a statement in which he did not further discuss the causes behind his departure. Instead, he mentioned his 30 years of close collaboration with President Alassane Ouattara, whom he has traditionally been seen as close to. More importantly, he sided with his original PDCI Renaissance Party by highlighting the reasons that motivated the creation of the political movement created in December 2018. Duncan, a constant figure on the Ivorian political scene, served as foreign minister from 2011 to 2012 and then as prime minister in charge of economy and finance from 2012 to 2017, when he became the first vice president in Ivory Coast history by taking up a position created under a new constitution adopted in 2016. His resignation comes less than a week after Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly's sudden death and less than 4 months before the much-anticipated October presidential election. On the security front in Ivory Coast, the government announced on Monday that it had created a special military zone in the north of the country at the borders with Mali and Burkina Faso. The zone, which will have a single central command for military operations, aims to prevent any infiltration of armed groups into the national territory. The government's move comes less than a month after the jihadist attack on a frontier post in Kafolo. The attack that killed 14 Ivorian soldiers on the country's border with Burkina Faso was the first assault by Islamist extremists on Ivorian soil since March 2016. Somalia's 32-year-old army chief survived a suicide bomb attack in Mogadishu on Monday, as announced by the army spokesman.
The security staff of the Somali Army commander, General Odawa Yusuf Reich, successfully foiled a suicide car bomb that was used by the militants, while the army prevented them from inflicting casualties on the people. We thank the security staff. They thwarted the attack after shooting bullets against the suspect seconds before it went off. According to the casualties, at least 1 person was killed and 2 others injured in the car bomb attack, the scene which you can see from here. The Somali Army promises the people of Somalia that we will foil any attempt by the militants to kill innocent people. We will defend you and will protect you from their blasts. as we did today.
Monday's attack was claimed by the Somalia-based Al-Shabaab jihadist group, which is affiliated to Al-Qaeda, according to the authorities. Although the jihadis were successfully driven out of the capital Mogadishu in 2011, they still control portions of the territory and carry out attacks against the government and international targets. Finally, British writer Sylvia Arthur of Ghanaian origin gives a tour of what she likes to call her decolonised library that she founded in Accra to honour African literature.
And Booker Prize in 2015. He was the first black writer. So this library is dedicated to the works of African and African diaspora writers. And when we talk of African diaspora writers, we're talking about African, African American, Caribbean, Black British, European. Anywhere where there are people of African descent in the world, we have their books in this library. And the reason why it's important is because I think it's very important for us as a people to know that we come from a long literary tradition. It will always be important to showcase and highlight African and African diaspora writers. But I think now it's in sharp focus because of the protests that are going on, and that is a good thing from our perspective. But as I say, even after the protests are over, we will still be here.
I've never seen such a brilliant collection of Pan-African writings in my life. I've traveled across to many countries in the world. I mean, best of museums and other libraries, but I've never seen how, for the first time I'm seeing an autograph book by Kwame Nkrumah and other manuscripts for Aikwe's Ames, Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born.
Sad because African literature is somehow dead. We only write for others. We write for fame, we write for money, we write for so much. But we don't write for our identity. We don't write, to revive the spirit of Africa.
With her Library of Africa and the African diaspora, Arthur hopes that Ghanaians and Africans will find pride in their literary heritage. She intends to run a residency program in October that will enable writers from across the continent and the diaspora to stay at the library and peruse her formidable collection. That's it for today. Thank you for watching Vox News.